Millions of people today visit Versailles with its beautiful gardens designed by André Le Nôtre. They walk on its parquet floors where balls were once held, and they stroll in the Parterre gardens, a refuge from the crowded palace. During the reign of Louis XIV, 220 apartments and 450 small rooms were inhabited. But how many visitors realize the artists of the Sun King followed an aesthetic system which tied the arts together into a harmonious expression of the universe? Designs for both dance and gardens are intrinsically linked by theory and guide the participants into social encounters. The common route between the designs danced on the parquet and walked on the parterre is more obvious when comparing iconography of dance notations to garden design. But of course, the actual garden space is much larger, more like a football field. These designs are older than the 17th century and have their origins in Renaissance humanist thought, which explored the theory of cosmographia del minor mondo, the thought that God's universe, the macrocosm, is reflected in all things, the microcosm. Ideas set down by the ancient Greek philosopher Pythagoras were being explored in the Renaissance. Geometry was metaphorical. A circle represented the spiritual realm and a square represented material existence. It was believed that bones were akin to the rocks of the earth. Flesh was like the dirt or earth covering the rocky support. Blood moved like the water in a river running to the sea, and it ebbed and flowed in a motion directed by ocean tides. Da Vinci also spoke of the golden ratio or divine proportion known as phi. This mathematical ratio relates to concepts of beauty and gained momentum in the Renaissance and Baroque periods. Distilling art into a formula allowed Renaissance Italian dancing masters, Domenico, Cornizano, and Guglielmo, to reiterate formulas in their court dances, positioning dance within the 7 liberal arts, thus distinguishing it from folk dancing. At the same time, formal garden designers linked their practice to the field of architecture and also claimed a place in the arts and sciences. The golden nautilus or spiral, considered to be the most beautiful mathematical form, was soon reflected in elaborate staircases, such as this one designed for England's French queen, Henrietta Maria, sister of Louis XIII. Spirals and other geometrical metaphors found their way into garden design and dance. However, the designs in art were not strictly dictated by the principles of mathematics, but were rather inspired by them. And art also needed to express the passions of man and the movements of the soul. Geometry was only part of the picture. For example, in the offering of the right and left hands in the minuet, You can see the attraction of the spiral in joining the two orbits of the dancers as they merge their own golden nautilus to their partners in a tender touch. By walking through these patterns, the participant was taking part in a cosmic reflection of the workings of the universe. In her book, The Eloquent Body, Dance and Humanist Culture in 15th Century Italy, Jennifer Neville compares treatises of dancing masters. She concludes that by using science and geometry in their works, the dancing masters were able to distinguish the cultivated ballroom dances from those of the popular tavern and folk dances, which were lacking in rules and etiquette. And dance historian Margaret McGowan reminds us that the patterns inscribed on the floor of the ballroom and the stage were not haphazard. They had divine effects. These were the same geometric patterns which were present in the formal gardens and which were also seen as having moral effects on those who walked through them. The interlocking spiral paths in Fabrizio Carozzo's dance, Nobiltà di Dama, printed in 1600, can be related to the Fibonacci rose sequence seen in this diagram. And as late as 1770, the 13th figure of a contredance by Monsieur Battu repeats these interlocking spiral paths in a dance for 8 people. The Fibonacci rose sequence comes from Leonardo Fibonacci in the 13th century when he introduced Europe to the Hindu-Arabic numeral system. Without Fibonacci, we would be calculating our restaurant bills in Roman numerals. Fractal art continues our fascination with geometry today. I really love this work by the artist Karl Eschenbach. The geometric forms which recur so frequently in these designs for plant beds, such as the square, traditionally a symbol of earth and its elements, the circle, a symbol of heaven and divinity, the regular polygons, and the triangle, a symbol of fire, had to sustain complex astrological and magical esoterical connotations. Compare the aerial view of the gardens of Versailles with the Fibonacci rose, and then with Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa's pentagram and the human body.
It is not surprising that French monarchs Francis I, Charles IX, Louis XIV benefited from adapting cosmography theory into politics, art, and religion. All 3 kings danced in court ballets. They were not playing dress-up. They were using symbols as a way of communicating their power and their place in the kingdom, channeling ancient myths. This allegorical portrait of Francis I demonstrates the various mythical sources of the king's power, which he drew upon to create a persona of glory and strength.
In time of war, Francis is a furious Mars. In peace, like Minerva, or Diana at the hunt. The fullness of his eloquence equals that of Mercury. In matters of the heart, his grace is that of the god of love himself. O blessed France, honor thus the visage of your great king, whose qualities surpass those of nature. For in honoring him, you serve all at once, Minerva, Mars, Diana, love, and Mercury.
The Sun King not only danced in ballets, he also led his troops into battle and often returned to the refuge of his gardens. With passion and enthusiasm, he oversaw the designs of Le Nôtre, and at times Louis pruned and planted.
Extending even to the Age of Enlightenment, with Louis XV and the XVI, the fascination and enjoyment of geometrical patterns in dance and in the garden were embedded in European culture. Today, dances of Louis XIV continue to flourish in his gardens with new sculptural installations by Jean-Michel Othoniel, based on dance notations published by Raoul-André Feuillet in Choreography ou l'art de décrire la danse. Patterns danced on the parquet floor of Versailles will forever live in its Parterre gardens. I wonder how many people, including the artist, understand how his innovative sculpture carries a deep ancient root in ideas of the cosmos and man's noble desire to take part in the harmony of the spheres.